Hey everybody, so today we're going to be doing a few different things. First of all, we're going to be talking about just some quick updates, what we can look forward to in January and what's taking place with some of these filings. And then we are going to be doing a read-through of the Bombshell, or should I say, lack thereof a Bombshell transcript. So let's start off with some of these quick little updates. Now in regards to those motions filed by both Means and Woods for protective order, the judge has denied those. Now on that same note, we still have stuff to look forward to come January 6th. Remember, we're going to be looking at a hearing that is going to be a change of venue, and then they're also going to be addressing that very cumbersome filing that Means has done trying to disqualify Mr. Wood. That should be interesting. Now let's go ahead and get to this read through of the transcripts. Now before I start, a lot of you, when I did my first video, because the only thing we really had at that point was that little bit that Court TV had put out there, which at this point I'm just like, really? I knew that was just kind of like them putting their little spin on it. They didn't even really go through anything. They just paraphrased it because, you know, all that stuff was out there waiting for the sealing or unsealing and this and that and da-da-da-da-da. So a lot of you were like, oh my God, you have to go check out Scott Reich's channel. He did a video on it. He gave some commentary, and so I did. And I just want to say, yes, absolutely. There's a couple of things that he said that I was like, right on, right on. And so first of all, if you don't know him, there's a link down below to his channel. A lot of my viewers here already know him, but if you don't, I am linking it down there. So one thing that he said that stuck out to me is, first of all, he's like, I'm not really seeing anything here that would even qualify for anything that Mark Means is alleging. And I mean, I agree. Granted, Scott's the lawyer. I'm not. So I'm going to have to like go with his word a little bit more than mine. But just first glance, I'm like, yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Now, another thing that I was like very intriguing, I am very ready to see this happen, is he was saying, look, you know, Mark Means might be running into some trouble with the bar because these kind of allegations are extremely serious. And when they don't really hold any merit, it can be a not cute look. And so that's one of the things that I've been so curious about too, is that aspect. You know, how much of these shenanigans can Mark Means pull before somebody pulls the plug on him? Now here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this read through, and I'm gonna be doing this. Usually I try and make eye contact and but I have this whole thing printed out here, so I'm going to be kind of reading it and doing this little number, so just bear with me. I'm also gonna be adding 2 of my damn cents from the damn sofa as we go. So without further ado, let's review. Now remember, this transcript is between a few different people. We're talking Garrett Smith, the attorney for Summer Shiftlet. We're talking Rob Wood, the DA, and we are talking Summer Shiftlet, who is Lori's biological sister. So let's jump into it. So Rob Wood starts off and he says, and this one's a little bit cumbersome sounding just because of the way it came out, on of the ones kind of running down the kids' case because they were last seen in Rexburg and or were last living in Rexburg. Tylee was last seen in Yellowstone, but and Summer says, right? And then Wood continues, and so we were the ones that knew everything about the case, so they assigned us on that. I'm just going to tell you right now, we are going to be filing conspiracy to commit murder charges for both Chad and Lori. Okay, pause the damn sofa for a second. That right there, they could have been like, that's the only thing we got from this whole damn transcript, and I would have been like, right on, I'm satisfied. We've been waiting to hear those words. So you know what, actually, if you do want to talk about some bombshell information, I mean, that right there would qualify as that, but not anything so far, of course, what Mark Means is alleging. So this is a sign of hope. Hopefully this isn't him, you know, trying to puff things up or whatever, but I think most of us are kind of waiting on these charges. Let's continue. Now Garrett Smith pipes in and says, okay. Then Rob Wood continues, and we're not shy about that. We've told both attorneys. His attorney keeps pretending like I've never said that. What? But we are. We have to. But I kind of want to give you like a little bit of background of where we are and kind of like our kind of theory of how this ended up where it was. We know that this is not the same Lori everyone else and this goes weird here. I think it says like seems to know or whatever, and it jumps to, everything fun, everyone loved her, she loved everyone. Summer says, great mom. And then Wood continues, great mother. That's what everyone says. And so one thing I'm going to kind of ask you to consider is maybe something happened. I don't know what. I don't know if it was psychological. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever know. But something happened, and I think Colby, the way he said it to me, I think it's kind of the person who was in jail. He said, it's not my mom, it's someone else. And Summer says, yeah. Now, listen, so we already know from watching that Doomsday ID channel thing that they just came out with. Everyone is saying this, even the Woodcocks. I mean, they're just like, nobody would have guessed this. This is not the Lori we knew. This was a fun mother. Everyone loved her. Family, yada, yada, yada. I mean, literally everybody that knew Lori was saying this. So it's interesting that even Rob Wood is going with this direction in the beginning of this conversation. So, part of me sits here and says, is he trying to like soften things up and not just come in hard right off the bat? And then how much of it is true that all these people are saying this is not the same Lori? Let's continue. Now Rob Wood continues, and here he goes in a little bit more direct. Rob says on the flip side of that is, I shouldn't say the flip side, but I want to be clear. I'm not going to pull any punches on any defendant in this case, right? I mean, I've got a job to do. And Summer says, absolutely. And then he continues, but we also want truth, and the whole truth, and the context of it. And Chad Daybell is, did you ever meet Chad? And Summer says, so I met him at a Preparing People. I went to one Preparing People thing. And like anybody wants to lay claim to go into those things at this point, now that they've run their name through it. And Rob Wood says, okay. Now, Summer says, and with my mom and husband and I went to support Lori, and she wanted to support Melanie Gibb. So went and met Chad, and he talked for like 90 seconds maybe, if that. And then he called me when Lori got transferred to the Idaho jail. He texted me and said Lori wanted to talk to me. And I was like, yeah. And then the second I hung up with her, he called me to ask about bail. Very telling. Now, Wood chimes in and goes, And then Summer continues. For Lori, I've talked to him maybe 3 times briefly on the phone. Never a long extended conversation. But the first thing he said to me when he called me was that he said that Lori hasn't told me very much about the kids. So there's not really much I can tell you about it. And Rob says, okay, of course he said that. And let's have a little bit of a sofa sidebar here for a second. Yeah, you know how we're all going back and forth like, who do we think will flip and who do we think will do that? I mean, she hadn't even gotten booked, and Chad was already like, I don't know nothing about the kids. Lori didn't tell me about them. So this is very telling. This again is just going to show his character. I mean, yeah, this guy is going to throw her under the bus if he can, 100%. I don't know if Lori would throw him under the bus or not. She's still under whatever spell thing she's under. I mean, who knows? But it's very telling to me of Chad's character that he is already setting this up this way with her family. Let's continue. So then Summer says, and then Rob Wood says, well, welcome to Chad Daybell. And then Summer says, I have my own opinions of him. Don't get me wrong. And then Wood says, I bet you do. He's highly manipulative. And Summer agrees. She says, yes, he is. Then Rob Wood steps in and says, I'm not going to say he's like highly intelligent, but you don't have to be highly intelligent to be highly manipulative. Amen, brother. I mean, my God, if he could not have summed that man up right there. And again, very intriguing because, this whole time, and I mean, I've been this way. I've been like, I think Lori's pulling the strings, And I mean, as we get deeper into this, and even here, they're talking about how manipulative he is. That he's not really intelligent. Now, I know Mark means that's going to be one aspect that he's going to try and go after, says he's not that intelligent. But I mean, it is what it is. And this is not Rob Wood, in my opinion, and my, sofa talk opinion here. This is not Rob Wood being, slanderous of him or anything like that. I mean, he's saying, you know what, I don't think the guy's that intelligent. I mean, my God, you can just hear him talk for 5 minutes and deduce that yourself. So Rob Wood continues. He is extremely manipulative. And you know your sister manipulated him in some ways too, but the context for everything that happened came from Chad. And Summer goes, absolutely. Now Rob continues, and unfortunately we do. We have enough evidence to prosecute him. We do, but the case against your sister is stronger. But I just want to give you just some background. That's the context that we see this guy came in here and, not making excuses for anyone, but kind of blew up this situation. And he didn't care who died. And again, Summer agrees. And then Wood continues, or who got hurt. He did not care at all. And the other thing I can tell you is your sister truly believes that everything she's done has been done in righteousness. And Summer says, I know. Then Rob says, I know, I'm kind of using LDS speak. And Garrett says, yeah. And then Summer says, 100% that's my interpretation also. I think she 100% believes. And Rob says, she believes it. And Summer says, So this interaction right here, let's just set up a sidebar for a second. Let's just talk about this. So here we go into this whole thing of, Chad is essentially the mastermind, if you will. What's so interesting is that he's saying that Lori truly believes this stuff. And literally, again, I'm going to revert back to the doomsday thing we just watched and hearing all these different people saying this belief system that she just kind of skewed off from LDS and started coming up with this crazy stuff that she just, seemingly really believed. So Rob Wood continues and he says, every once in a while, you'll see a little crack and a jail phone call, and Summer interrupts, well, you've heard our phone conversations too. You know that I get that she's not fully aware of what she's really done. And Wood says, right, yeah. And then she says, I don't think she is. And Wood says, yeah, I'm going to say this. I think she knows what she's done. And Summer says, she knew enough to lie to us about it. And Wood says, right, yeah, but the context under which it was done was this, religious. Just these ideas were out there. I can say this because I am LDS. Had no basis in the LDS faith. And you said it in her phone calls to her. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. And we, again, we just really are grateful for you coming in, and it's going to be hard to talk about these things. And Summer says, oh yeah. Now, okay, so this right here. And this is what tells me where it's Rob is you know what, I don't think she's fully aware, I don't think this or that, but she knows what she did. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's interesting how Summer agrees with everything, and then when he starts saying she's aware, and she's like, well, yeah, she knew to lie to me. That part right there, I'm just interesting, she kind of just shifts a little bit, if you will. But again, regardless of whether Lori's lost in some religious, trance or whatever, I too believe that she knew what she did. And they talk about this in a second. And I think that that's going to come back to bite her. And Rob continues, we know that. And they're going to be, you're not being a person of interest. And Garrett says, yeah, we've had that conversation, so... And then Rob continues, but part of what we need to do is understand. Well, when you have a case like this, it's not just like a meth case. I probably had meth and nobody cares who you are. Summer says, no, there's no drugs, no alcohol, it's just... And Rob breaks in. But this case is we need to understand the context of who these people are. And so that's a lot of what they're going to be asking about. And Summer says, okay, I'll do my best. And then Wood says, I said it won't be easy. I know it's going to be hard. Be a hard interview. And then Summer comes back and says, I was wondering if you would be willing to if you're able to tell me if there's any progress in what you know about Tylee and her death. But is there any progress in her autopsy where you understand better? And Rob says, all I can tell, well... And then Summer continues, do you have a cause yet? Or is it close to one? And then Rob continues, she is at the FBI state-of-the-art crime lab. Unfortunately, there's a lot of deceased bodies there that they're going through. And Summer says, oh, I'm sure. And then Rob says, and so we don't know really anymore yet. We may never know due to the destruction of that body. And yeah, we hope we'll find out. We may not, but obviously we know it's her. There was soft tissue that was still preserved enough to do DNA test. And then Summer says, yeah, the way you guys found them, like we wouldn't have ever known. And Garrett says, yeah. And then Summer says, and I would have never dreamed that she would ever hurt them so. And then Rob Wood says, you know what? And everyone says that. And Summer says, yeah. And then Rob says, that's what everyone says. Everyone says that. I never would have. So it's a tragic thing. And I mean, again, I'll just break in real quick. I mean, literally everybody keeps saying that, which is what blows my mind about this. You know, that's really piqued my interest in this and that documentary that came out recently. Is just finding out what took place. Why is everyone that knows her says there was absolutely no signs of this in her personality? So, you know, really was what took place. Chad Daybell. Now Rob Wood continues and he, you know, tightens up a little bit here. He says, but I just want you to know how grateful we are. I know you don't have to talk to us. And so we're just grateful that you're willing to and helping us that way. And it's, I'm sure, kind of difficult knowing that they're asking for information that's going to help them in the case against your sister. But I guess the thing I want you to know is our whole goal is just justice for these kids. And Summer says, yeah. And Rob continues, and we mean our hope. Our hope is it comes to it. Your sister's actually made some overtures. She might be willing to talk to us. Very interesting here. We'll have to see what happens with that. Summer says, I hope she does. I pray for that all the time. And then Rob says, we hope she does. She actually was talking with Chad about talking with us before we found the bodies, just a few days before, and he talked her out of it. Of course. So this is what tells me that maybe with some time she'll come clean and tell a fuller story. We don't know yet. And Summer says, And then Rob Wood says, which is too bad. It would have been better for her to tell us. And then Garrett says, yeah, sure, it would have been. And Summer says, I agree. Now Rob continues. I mean it. We were actually just finishing up our warrant on the date she said that. We were just getting ready to go out that day. That would have been even better. And he talked her out of it. And Summer says, yeah. And Rob says, and the night before she says to him again, like, what do you think about, you know, and he uses this kind of, I call it spiritual abuse, spiritual manipulation. And Summer says, yeah. And then Rob says, we've all seen that guy in the LDS religion whose wife has to obey him because he's the priesthood type thing. And that's not what it says, but it's the same type of thing. And Garrett says, mm-hmm. And then Rob continues, well, I'm the visionary guy, so you know. So anyway, again, I just wanted to meet with you real quick and introduce myself and Mackenzie. And then Summer interjects, I would have obviously seen you. And then Rob Wood says, yes, yeah. And then Summer says, but I don't take any joy in doing anything that's going to harm her. I don't take joy in her spending her life in prison. There's nothing. And Rob says, sure. And she says, it hurts to think about her being in there. And Rob says, there's nothing good about cases like this. And Summer says, there's nothing good about it. And Rob says, and you know what? Even if you win the case, like Garrett's been in court, like there's cases, you know, as a prosecutor, like you take to trial and you win, and you're like, even at the end, you're like, well, nothing good it's all bad. And Garrett says, yeah. And Summer says, it's all bad. And I mean, I agree with what they're saying. I mean, honestly, there's just nothing good in any of this. Obviously, we want justice for these two kids, and we want to see, you know, Lori and Chad with their justice, you know, pay for this justice. But at the end of the day, I mean, so many lives have been destroyed. I mean, it's just like, oh my God. You know, it's horrible. Rob Wood continues. I said this to someone the other day who knows your sister. Our goal is sometimes you get murder and all you have is that murder and you just have to run out and charge it. And then you kind of put it together. We're able to put them in jail with a high bail and these lower charges and put a case together. Now our goal is to have such a strong case that when she has competent counsel, I don't know if you know this, her attorney has never handled a felony before. Well, shocker. And Summer goes, mm-hmm. And prosecutor Rob Wood says he's never done any meaningful criminal work at all, and he doesn't know what he's doing. He's a nice guy. And Summer says, yeah, I met him. And then Rob Wood continues and he says, other than when he's lying about me, but he doesn't know what he's doing, and once we file further charges, she will be appointed counsel who will know what they are doing. And our goal is to put together such a case that they're smart enough to say, it's going to be better to talk. And Summer says, mm-hmm. So now again, y'all, this is not a big secret. This is not slanderous. Mark Means has not ever handled a case like this. Rob Wood knows this. Everyone knows it. I mean, the general public knows it. I mean, us here at the damn Sofa Squad know this. He is out of his element. And so whatever he's doing with all this crazy stuff, I mean, yeah, when they get more, like, these bigger charges coming, I'm sure something's going to have to be done, because there's no way this dude can handle a case like this. He can't even handle what's going on right now. Now, Rob Wood continues, you know, and I think we are, and make it easier for everyone. Make it easier, especially for, you know, Colby. If there's someone who's lost everything, it's him. So anyway, I mainly just wanted to thank you for coming in and being with us. And then Summer says, it's weird to be on the prosecution and defense side at the same time, because I love everybody. And then Rob says, well, you know, it's a system. I did defense work I did it for 5 years, and I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of fun. And Garrett says, I like defending. And then Rob says, and you gave me that perspective right away. Just because someone's committed a crime doesn't mean they're a horrible person. And Summer says, so I'm torn with all that. It's such a conflicting feeling to know that this person's been good her whole life and then has made this error in judgment and got sucked into the vortex of this man. And Rob Wood says, And Summer says, and I feel for her. I have so much compassion towards her, because I know that's not what she would have ever done on her own. And Rob says, right. And then Summer continues, and so she has to pay for the price for this forever. And I hate that for her. So I'm very conflicted. But I was going to ask you on the concealment, or not the concealment, but on the conspiracy to commit murder, what's the weight of that in terms of judgment? Is that a death penalty kind of a thing? And Rob Wood says, it is death penalty case in Idaho. And Summer says, so are you planning to ask that for them, or do you not want to? And Rob says, we sure hope we don't. A lot of that will depend on her. And then Summer says, okay. I personally think, you know, again, if they remain tight-lipped and all this stuff, we're probably going to see them completely come after them with all this stuff. You know, if one of them is willing to talk, like if Lori's like, look, here's the deal, they might do an exchange or whatever. So, I mean, we've all kind of known this is going on, where they're probably gathering this case and presenting it against, you know, Lori and Chad. They want to have a solid case, and clearly that's what's taking place. And we can see this all here, so we just have to be patient. You know, but if they get a solid enough case, it would only make sense for them to plead out to it. You know, so maybe we can get a fuller story. I don't know. We'll have to see. Now Rob Wood continues. And that's not a decision, or that's a decision we don't make actually until after the case is filed. Summer says, okay. And then Rob says, and we have a couple of months, because a lot of times when you file it, it's out there on the table. Oftentimes that's a big motivator for people to get together and talk and try and resolve it. And that's what we hope happens. I have no desire to do that. Plus, once you do that, it's endless appeals. And Garrett says, yeah. And then Rob says, I don't think the other family wants it at all, because it, and Garrett says, prolongs it. And Rob says, the case just never resolves. And Garrett says, yeah. And then Rob Wood says, it's just kind of, well, you appeal this and you appeal that, and it can go on forever. So we're sure hoping not to go down that route now. I'm not saying I won't. If we look at trial, I might. But we haven't made up our minds on that. And Summer says, okay. I mean, I agree with him. When you see these death penalty things, I mean, they get dragged out years. I mean, look at Scott Peterson. I mean, my God. And then Rob Wood continues, we really don't want to. Can tell you that from the bottom of my heart. And Summer says, knowing her, if she comes out of this state and realizes the weight of it, she may prefer that, honestly. I think about all the time with her just because of what she's been through. I just can't. And then Rob Wood says, I know you know a lot more about Lori than I do, but we have learned a lot about Lori. And there's been some things happen in her life, I think, that play into this. And Summer says, oh, definitely. And then Rob Wood says, but we, like I said, I talk of having a one-way a little bit, but I want you to know that I have no desire to. And Summer says, yeah, I think you see it for what it is. And then Rob Wood says, yeah, it's not a... Summer interjects and says, I don't know how you couldn't with interviewing everybody. Then Rob Wood continues, well, I'll tell you. I was there in Hawaii when that order to produce the children was served. And I was there when they served the search warrants for when the news showed up, which I was super annoyed by that. It just blows everything up. At that moment when we saw them, because your sister can put on a brave face. And Summer says, oh yeah. And then Rob Wood says, we were like, oh, does this guy know what he's gotten into? And Summer says, mm-hmm. And then Rob Wood says, and because she's very just stoic, very like, I'm not going to say a word. He looked like he was about to pee his pants because he's actually a wimpy person. Now, they're talking about Chad here, and I'm sure one of these things is stuff that Mark Means is talking about. And then Summer agrees. She says, yeah. And Rob Wood says, he wimpy? And then she says, yeah. Then Rob Wood continues, he's great if he has someone else to do something for him, but he himself, he's a wimpy person. And at that time, they were like, this is all her. Like, how is she manipulating this guy? But then once we dug into that was the beginning as we were like starting to get facts. We got more facts. Like, oh, again, I'm not going to pull punches if I have to go to trial, but these ideas came from him. And Summer says, oh yeah. Now that's very revealing to me, very interesting that that's the zone that they're going through. So, you know, they're going for this whole tactic of, okay, all these ideas came from Chad. You know, yes, we can have our opinions that Lori probably was, you know, manipulating him with, you know, her looks or those kinds of things. But I do think it's really interesting how much weight they're putting on Chad. Now, let's continue. So Rob Wood says, and she had some different views on theology and standard LDS by that point, but he really knew how to manipulate that and turn it into something even more. And then Summer says his influence was there before she met him. And Rob Wood says, yes, she was reading his books and Summer interjects, wasn't just his books, so it was like the Julie Rowe podcast. Oh Lord, here we go. Rob Wood says, oh yes. And then Summer says, he gave Julie Rowe a lot of her ideas. And so when she would listen to Julie Rowe, she was getting to Chad's ideas too by listening to this. And Rob Wood says, yeah, okay, yeah, Julie Rowe, she's interesting. And Summer says, I've heard some of her podcasts. When she started talking about herself in third person all the time, I'm like, amen, girl. Prosecutor Rob Wood says, yeah, I've listened to her podcast as well, and interesting stuff. Now, again, we see this, and I see what Summer's talking about, because even like when you start looking at the Doomsday stuff and just the case in general, Lori was already reading these books. She was listening to the stuff before she even met Chad. So it was like this enigma I think he became to her before she even met him. I also think it's very interesting that they just straight up call Julie Rowe right on out. You know, because it is interesting if you look how Julie Rowe's kind of distancing herself from Chad, but you can tell that a lot of this information that she seems to be regurgitating is just that regurgitated information, maybe spun to her own liking. Garrett chimes in, I'm guessing with a joke. He says, Garrett doesn't like when people talk about themselves in the third person. Yeah. Then Rob Wood says, well, and we'll let you get going and we can start on this. And Garrett says, okay. Then Summer says, I was going to see if you guys just wanted wristbands to take back with you. These are wristbands. I had them made for Tylee and JJ. And Rob Wood says, oh, I would. And Garrett says, take as many as you want. And Summer says, give them to everybody. And Rob says, I'll tell you what. And Summer says, if you want them, Rob Wood says, yeah. And Summer says, we did it where? And then Wood says, they've got a couple of wristbands for, let's see there, Ron, Ray. And Summer says, you could just take the whole bag with you. That's fine. Just take them. And Rob Wood says, oh, do you have more of these? And Summer says, oh, I have plenty more. And Garrett says, you can't order these in 100. So, and Summer says, I may have hundreds I started off just doing them for Tylee and JJ's friends and teachers. We wear us all the time. So just keep them close. And Rob thanks her, and Summer says, yeah. And then Rob Wood says, sorry. Summer says, it's fine. And then Garrett says, it's an emotional thing. And Rob Wood says, you know it's interesting how Ken and Rexburg, those kids, weren't there very long, but there are kids. And Garrett says, yeah. And Summer says, anytime there's kids involved, it's not okay. So it makes me think maybe Rob started crying a little bit, you know, which would make sense. It's hard not to when you're going over this case. I mean, my God. And you can see this is just closing out information. This is just stuff being transcribed. There's not too much in here, but I'll just finish reading this out. So Rob Wood says, so thank you. And Garrett says, there's not one of us that doesn't want to protect the kids. And Robert Wood says, right? And Garrett says, for sure. And then Rob Wood says, all right, well, I'll call or text. If you need me, I don't know how long would you mind if we sit down and talk to you? Any breaks you need? Anything? And Garrett says, I've run over it, you bet. I told her if she has questions she can ask me or use the bathroom or we'll shut it down. And Summer says thank you. Garrett says do all that. And Summer says nice to meet you, and this is where it cuts off. So here's my thing. I don't see anything in there that is remotely even like, oh my God, let's disqualify it. Now obviously, like I've said, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just reporting live from the damn sofa. So there's that. But you would expect to see something harassing Summer. Summer seems very willing to be there. She's very transparent with her feelings about, you know what, it's my sister, I feel this way about it, but I mean, she's aware that her sister has done some really bad stuff. Another huge element to me is that Garrett wasn't objecting. Garrett wasn't saying anything along the way of, watch your mouth, or don't say that, or don't ask my client this, or anything you would expect to see. You know, I just don't see it there. So I think that this is going to be another situation where Mark Means is just going to be shot down, and it's just going to make him look even worse than he's already doing to himself. He is so clearly out of his element. He is so clearly doing things that just do not seem professional. Again, I don't know what all of the bar standards are and things of that nature, but again, like I said, hearing Scott say, this guy could be looking at some trouble with the bar. It doesn't shock me at all to be bringing up these kind of serious allegations for something that just, I mean, it's just not there. So that's it. Again, like I said, look out for some more of my videos on this. I'm going to be recording my Doomsday Reaction Recap video, so be on the lookout for that. Check out my playlist here for some more of my commentary in this case. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the mods. Thank you to the Sofa Squad, all the subscribers, the Patreons, the channel members, you name it. I appreciate it. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday, and I'll talk to you soon.